right, one more thing. Juan.
You know, every basketball team has a super fan at courtside. Last night in Salt Lake City, it was Mitt Romney. Yep, take a look at this tape. Romney is holding up 4 fingers to remind Thunder star guard of Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook, that he's close to fouling out of the game.
It's also how many minutes he's been a fan.
Oh, some people say Romney, like Pete, some people like Pete, say Romney was out there politicking in front of the Utah fans after failing to secure the GOP nomination for Utah's Senate seat this Saturday. But he looked like a winner last night, sitting courtside in his custom-made jersey, worn over a button-down shirt. Former Massachusetts governor, once a Celtics fan, now looks to have picked a winner. The Jazz hold a 3-1 lead in the best-of-7 series.
There you go. All right.
Look at him.
Stressful.
Okay, time for this. Greg's great idea. All right, so on Tuesday morning, some guy was going to try to kill himself by jumping over an overpass on 696 in Detroit. Here's the great idea. Take a look at this. The cops called a bunch of semis, a bunch of truck drivers, told him to park underneath the bridge. So when the guy couldn't jump, he couldn't jump anywhere. So that actually prevented the suicide. The guy ended up walking off the bridge where he was taken to a hospital for evaluation. That, my friends, is a great idea.
I was really worried about that, but it seemed to come together well. So that was creativity.
Yes, I nailed the landing, and he didn't, thank God.
Creativity.
All right, KG.
Thank you. I prematurely put the crown on the head and it was almost like a mishap. Good reflexes. Okay, Kimberly's Royal News.
I've had enough of this.
No, I really don't care. So, and this is a specific Fox News alert, Royal Fox News alert, and an update on a story that we covered. Because yesterday, Prince William and his wife, Kate, introduced the world to royal baby numero 3. And since we're all royal in our own special way, Greg, there were a few other newborns who got to share the royal spotlight. News stations from all over the world monitored the front of St. Mary's Hospital in London, awaiting the first glimpse of Duchess Kate and the baby. So it was no surprise they captured a few other wonderful, happy new parents and their babies making their way out of the hospital's maternity wing. Very nice to include them. And 2 couples embraced the cameras as they stepped out and made it an exit to remember. So God bless all of these beautiful families. A little taste of the royal life and what a joy it is to have a baby.
All right. Where are we, Kitty?
All right. Well, a college student was on the game show Jeopardy recently, and he's going viral for his answer to the question of what he would do with the grand prize if he won it. Watch this.
A lifetime supply of Taco Bell.
That's right. He would spend $100,000 on Taco Bell. The student Rajab Jain didn't win the $100,000, but after Jeopardy, he tweeted out his hilarious response, and Taco Bell responded in a big way. They offered him $500 worth of gift cards. I think Kimberly's a little bit guilty or jealous of this. And if he eats off the dollar menu, that means that he could eat throughout his entire college career.
How great
at
is
Taco Bell.
They should have said
He's a
half.
winner anyway.
He should have said half on Taco Bell, and then half on Imodium.
Oh.
You can't buy Imodium.
Now you're starting on Taco Bell. First it was
Imodium is
Chipotle.
incredibly expensive. It's incredibly expensive. It's more expensive than the meal in many ways.
No, it depends. $59, $79, $99.
Yeah, but they're very hard to open.
All depends on
the Imodium is like you got to have fingernails.
Okay.
All right, Pete.
Next.
All right, well,
Didn't you
moving
write
to
them?
Los Angeles, where there's as you know, there's a big homeless vets problem across America, specifically in Los Angeles. Well, the VA in Brentwood, there in L.A., finally made a common-sense decision and partnered with Safe Parking LA to provide 10 parking spots overnight for homeless vets to actually park their car and have somewhere to sleep. Now, it sounds like a small idea, but there are 400 acres of property at that VA facility.
Yeah.
It took 10 years to get 10 parking spots so that these homeless vets who have run in hard times have somewhere to sleep at night. It's an example of how the inhumane VA system treats people not like humans. And in this case, they finally got it right a little bit.
Pete, this is such a great idea because, and I work with Operation Renewed Hope for homeless veterans and with the VA, and you cannot believe how many veterans, they sleep in their cars. It's all they have left. They lose everything in life, and you know who lets them stay in the parking lot? Walmart.
All right.
Really?
Good for them.
Okay.
Set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The Five. Do not cry. Do not fret. If you want news, here comes Bret.
Wow.
Thanks, Greg. This is a Fox News alert. Welcome to Washington. I'm Bret Baier. The health of the Iran nuclear deal overshadowed tonight as allegations of past misconduct of the president's pick of VA secretary come to light. And while one report raises issues at this hour, we're seeing former President Obama's high praise for Rear Admiral Ronnie Jackson, calling him an asset to his own administration. So what is going to happen with the VA Secretary nomination? Where does it go from here? Chief White House correspondent John Roberts following the latest developments from the White House. Good evening, John.
And in just the last hour, Bret, we've had a flurry of developments in this case of Dr. Ronnie Jackson and his nomination to be the new Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Fox News has obtained fitness reports, so-called fit reps of Dr. Jackson, some of which were signed and commented on by President Obama, including one that says, where President Obama says, 22nd of October 2014, quote, a most impressive leader who continues to perform at the flag officer level. Ronnie has earned my confidence and the gratitude of my family for his diligence and knowledge. Promote to flag immediately. Signed, Barack Obama. On the 17th of October 2016, Ronnie does a great job. Genuine enthusiasm, poised under pressure, incredible work ethic and follow through. Ronnie continues to inspire confidence with the care he provides to me, my family, and my team. Continue to promote ahead of peers. And then an undated reference from President Trump, could have been earlier this year after his first annual physical. Dr. Jackson is a great doctor and leader, 2-star material. There are 4 fitness reports that were signed and commented on by President Obama. We share 2 of those with you. So there is a body of evidence here that the current president and former president certainly appreciated the work that Jackson was doing. And my colleague Jennifer Griffin will have more on some of the opposition that has come out. All of this, Bret, breaking on a day when President Trump prepares to have his very first state dinner with the visiting president of France, Emmanuel Macron. Foreign policy was top of the agenda in President Trump's meetings with the French president today, but it was a domestic issue, the fate of his embattled nominee to run Veterans Affairs, Dr. Ronnie Jackson, that took center stage.
I said, what do you need it for? So he'll be it's totally his decision, but he'll be making a decision.
The president insisting he is unaware of the allegations threatening Jackson's confirmation, throwing his full support behind the White House physician, but also giving him an out.
What does he need it for? To be abused by a bunch of politicians that aren't thinking nicely about our country? I really don't think personally he should do it, but it's totally his. I would stand behind him. Totally his decision.
On the centerpiece of their meeting, Iran policy, Presidents Trump and Macron diverged. Macron preferring President Trump to stay in the Iran nuclear deal. President Trump twice warning Iran not to restart its nuclear program, even if the U.S. pulls out.
They restart it, they're going to have big problems, bigger than they've ever had before.
If Iran threatens us in any way, they will pay a price like few countries have ever paid.
President Trump is facing a May 12th deadline to either again waive sanctions against Iran or withdraw from the nuclear deal. But in talks today, a possible third way, a second deal to cover Iran's long-term nuclear goals, ballistic missiles, and destabilizing actions in the Middle East.
Nobody knows what I'm going to do on the 12th, but we'll see. But we'll see also if I do what some people expect, whether or not it will be possible to do a new deal with solid foundations, because this is a deal with decayed foundations. It's a bad deal.
It was the first official state visit of the Trump presidency, honoring a leader President Trump has grown very fond of.
I like him a lot.
The public displays of appreciation, downright affection, put Macron in a class by himself.
In fact, I'll get that little piece of dandruff off. That little piece. We have to make him perfect. He is perfect.
But for all the handshakes, air kisses, and arm grabs, there are some sharp differences. President Trump pushing to get U.S. troops out of Syria. Macron pushing to keep them in a while longer.
What we want to do now is to finish this war with our troops, and we want to fix on the long run the situation to have peace in this region. That's our duty, and it's not just with our troops, it's with our diplomats, our teams, our common work, and obviously with all the allies in the region and people involved.
We've pretty much finished with ISIS, and we're going to be making some big decisions in a very short period of time. But we're working very closely together with France and with the president.
On the other big piece of the foreign policy puzzle, President Trump today had downright laudatory words for North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un.
He really has been very open and I think very honorable from everything we're seeing.
That was a sharp departure, that statement, from everything that President Trump has been saying about Kim Jong-un since the day that he was elected. But President Trump also made it clear of what he expects of North Korea, and that is for Kim Jong-un to completely give up and dismantle his nuclear program. And a little more breaking news, just the last few seconds, Bret. White House officials tell me that Dr. Ronny Jackson is not going to withdraw his nomination to be VA Secretary. He is going to stay and fight. Bret?
Well, that is news. John Roberts live on the North Lawn. John, thanks. We'll ask Kellyanne Conway, one of the senior advisors to President Trump, about that a little bit later. Meantime, President Trump's Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, will not recuse himself from the investigation into the president's personal attorney, Michael Cohen. That's what Bloomberg's reporting tonight. Justice Department officials are not confirming this as of yet, but if Sessions does not recuse himself, then he could be briefed on the details of this investigation, the Cohen investigation. He, of course, did recuse himself from the Russia investigation at the beginning. As John reported just a moment ago, the president's pick to run the VA is saying that he was going to stay and fight, but he hit a roadblock up on Capitol Hill as allegations swirled about possible misconduct by the president's personal doctor. National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin reports from the Pentagon, specifically what is delaying Rear Admiral Ronny Jackson's confirmation hearing.
The allegations involve a series of whistleblower complaints that came to light last week, reportedly involving excessive drinking, questionable prescription practices, and creating a toxic work environment.
I'm looking forward to rescheduling the hearing and answering everyone's questions.
Rear Admiral Ronny Jackson first caught President Trump's eye when he presented the results of his physical in January.
I told the president that if he had a healthier diet over the last 20 years, he might live to be 200 years old. He has incredible genes.
His nomination followed the president's abrupt firing of his first VA secretary, David Shulkin, a respected hospital administrator who fell out of favor after an inspector general report chastised him for accepting Wimbledon tickets for his wife, which caught the ire of President Trump. Admiral Jackson has served since 2006 in the White House medical unit under Presidents Bush, Obama, and Trump. He also served in Iraq. Veterans groups, including the oldest in the nation, questioned whether he has the experience to run the government's second largest agency with its 370,000 employees. Quote, Dr. Jackson's bio does not reflect any experience working with the VA or with veterans or managing any organization of this size. In a letter to the president, Senator Johnny Isakson, a Trump loyalist, and ranking Veteran Affairs member, Senator John Tester, asked for more documentation of Jackson's service in light of the allegations.
The allegations that have come out against Admiral Jackson are very disturbing.
Probably makes sense for the president to spend a little bit more time doing research on his own nominees before he sends them to Congress.
Republican Senator Jerry Moran pushed back after meeting with Admiral Jackson.
The admiral indicated he was very anxious for his hearing and would like to respond to the allegations, although my impression is he doesn't know exactly what they are either.
A 2012 Navy Medical Inspector General report criticized the command climate under then-Captain Jackson and Navy Captain Jeffrey Kuhlman, who served as the president's personal physician. Those who worked under these two men said it was like living with two parents going through a bitter divorce. The IG report made no mention of alcohol or prescription abuse. It blamed much of the poor command climate on Jackson's rival. Bret?
Jennifer Griffin live at the Pentagon. Jennifer, thank you. Over to Wall Street. A rough day on Wall Street. The Dow dropping 425 after being down more than 600 points at one point in the day. The S&P 500 lost 36. The Nasdaq finished down 121. For more on what's ailing this market, we turn to Deirdre Bolton, host of Risk and Reward on Fox Business Network. Good evening, Deirdre.
Good evening, Bret. There were two big reasons for the selling today. So one actually has to do with a bond market data point. So you had 10-year bond yields at topping 3% for the first time in more than 4 years. And as interest rates go higher, all borrowing becomes more expensive. So basically that's a headwind for businesses. That's a headwind for consumers. The other big reason for the selling today is linked to the calendar. We are right in the middle of earnings season. So this week alone, about a third of the S&P 500 companies are publishing sales and earnings reports, and all investors look ahead. So what these companies say about their own outlook is key to market sentiment. Caterpillar and 3M, important Dow components, their forecasts for the rest of this year were weaker than expected. The construction equipment maker beat earnings and sales forecasts for the past quarter, but the CFO implied the rest of the year would not match. You had the stock down more than 6%. 3M's earnings met expectations, but the company lowered its full-year profit forecast, and you can see from your screens the stock down again more than 6%. Now, even in tech, usually the market's bright spot, stocks fell across the board. Alphabet, Google reported earnings late last evening, exceeding estimates on sales and on earnings, but investors focused on the future and one with potential regulatory challenges. The entire tech group fell, including Facebook, which reports tomorrow, and Amazon, which reports on Thursday. Apple and Netflix also lower today as well. So one analyst told me that investors want to see earnings season perfection, since most market participants anticipate the Fed raising interest rates, and investors also think input costs are going to go higher for most companies, especially if tariffs are imposed. So, Bret, a lot of factors at play, but it added up to a day of red on the screens. Back to you.
All right, Deirdre, thank you. To discuss all things happening here in Washington with the administration, we are joined by Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, live from the White House on a state dinner evening. Good evening, Kellyanne. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
I want to start where John left off, and that is reporting that the nomination is moving forward and that Ronny Jackson is going to still be the nominee for VA Secretary.
Well, that is his intention. I talked to Dr. Jackson this afternoon. I spoke with the president, and Dr. Jackson has made clear that he wants to fight. We cannot allow anyone to be criticized and vetted and concluded upon in the press or just through allegations. That's what hearings are for. And if Dr. Jackson is willing to go and raise his right hand and answer questions, then the whole world can see that, and that's called a confirmation hearing. I would really push back heartily at the Democratic senator that you showed, Chris Murphy, saying maybe the president will do a better job vetting his people. Here's the best vet we have. These are the fitness report and counseling records from President Obama. Gave very high marks to Ronny Jackson, quote, a most impressive leader who continues to perform at the flag officer level, meaning admiral. Ronny has earned my confidence and the gratitude of my family for his diligence and knowledge. Goes on. And so we should know that. One in 2014, this one in 2016, an exceptional physician and leader. So this Dr. Jackson has been serving several different presidents, obviously Republicans and Democrats. The president today said that he understands if Dr. Jackson wants to stand down, but that he, the president, is sticking by him.
Well, let me play that soundbite and get your reaction to it.
I will tell you, he's one of the finest people that I have met. And it was a suggestion, but I told Admiral Jackson just a little while ago, I said, what do you need this for? But I said, what do you need it for? I would definitely stand behind him. He's a fine man. I'll always stand behind him.
With regard to the Jackson nomination, I'm waiting to hear from both Chairman Isaacson and from the administration what they believe the way forward should be, and we'll take our cues from them.
I mean, Kellyanne, he eventually got to, I will definitely stand behind him, but I mean, there was a long kind of, I wouldn't do it. I'd told him to drop out, essentially, and it wasn't a ringing endorsement from the president today, was it?
Well, the president endorsed him by nominating him and by standing by him now, and that he said very clearly it's Dr. Jackson's decision, but that he would stand by him. Let me give a little bit of amplification to what the president was truly saying there. He knows how intense these jobs are. He knows that we're all constantly put upon and scrutinized and picked apart. And there are people here, like Dr. Jackson has been here for many, many years. Bret is serving his nation admirably, who are doing so because they love the country and they love the presidency and want to serve this president at this time. And the president's just speaking more broadly. He sees how tough it is for folks. But I thought that what the president also was telling Dr. Jackson is to make up his own mind, and Dr. Jackson has done just that as of this afternoon. I want to just read one last thing because I think this is important. Quote, continue to groom and promote this highly capable officer. That came from former President Barack Obama in a signed statement, and I think that President Trump agrees. Continue to groom and promote this highly capable officer.
Yeah, last thing on this. I mean, the allegations involve a whistleblower to the IG coming forward, reportedly allegations of excessive drinking, questionable prescription practices, and creating a toxic work environment, as well as the charges that he's not up to the massive bureaucracy that the VA is. That is what's coming from Capitol Hill. You're saying all of those things are wrong.
No, I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying that allegations should be fully and thoroughly vetted during confirmation hearings under oath or during these private meetings with these senators that Dr. Jackson has been having. But Dr. Jackson, I assume, has concluded it's no reason to withdraw the nomination, withdraw consideration. No, we should always take allegations seriously, but the place to take them seriously is in these meetings and eventually under oath at a hearing, not just through the press and through one report. You've also seen a number of people give him glowing recommendations. You have lots of folks, and I'm not going to be somebody who impugns a man's integrity based on one or two things that are said while he has an opportunity before him, Bret, to raise his right hand and swear under oath, as he has to this country many times, and answer these questions.
Understood.
And then those senators will have to make their decision. But the president said something else today I think bears mentioning. He mentioned Director Pompeo, and the president is absolutely right and clear about this, that Director Pompeo had 15 or 16 Democrats vote for him to be CIA director 14 months ago. They loved his credentials then. The only thing that's changed is that he has more credentials, having been a successful and able, effective CIA director. And you have so many of those Democrats now saying they can't vote for him to be Secretary of State. So the president recognizes that people are playing politics with these nominations. He recognizes how tough it is.
Yeah. Two more questions. One is on another personnel matter, and that is Scott Pruitt, the EPA administrator. Bloomberg, in an article, says White House officials have discouraged lawmakers from vigorously defending the administrator, said two people who asked for anonymity because the discussions weren't public. Is that true?
Well, I see why they're asking for anonymity. That's pretty obvious. The president has asked Administrator Pruitt to do many things that have meant a great deal to his agenda. And I would refer most of those questions to EPA, but I would tell you, I'd echo what our press secretary and others have said, which is that there are no plans to make a change there right now. And most importantly, Administrator Pruitt is set to testify before two committees tomorrow in Congress. I don't believe that's changed. He's testifying about the budget, but I'm sure he'll be asked other questions. And to my point, Bret, that's a great forum for that.
All right,
great forum while under oath.
Last thing, the president speaking in the cabinet room today, and obviously this meeting with the French president seems to be going very well from the relationship, just the reporting on it. But he was talking about North Korea, and he's getting some grief about this statement. Take a listen.
We're having very good discussions. Kim Jong-un he really has been very open and I think very honorable from everything we're seeing.
So critics saying that he's calling the dictator who has been horrible to his people very honorable. Can you explain that for folks?
Well, he's actually referred to him as somebody who's been horrible to his own people, so people should pull that as well. He's talking about the process here. He's talking about an open and honorable that he's acted that way through this process, meaning that he's come to the table, he's met with South Korea, he is willing to stand down with some of his ballistic missile capabilities at the moment, and has shown an openness to sitting down with this president, frankly, in a way that has not happened before. Many others have tried. It has failed. Our eyes are wide open here. The president has made very clear, Bret, early and often, that if the conditions are not right and they're not acceptable to this country, then he won't participate. But even South Korea today said that North Korea is leaning towards denuclearization, as they put it. And we like the progress. We like the fact that Director Pompeo has already been over there, didn't leak, that he's already been over there over Easter for the first round of meetings. And we have a long way to go, but everybody else has failed to do something that this president truly wants to do on behalf of everybody. Denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula benefits everyone.
Percentage chance that this meeting actually goes forward?
Oh, I don't know. That's really that's in large part up to North Korea and how serious they are in making, I think, concessions and making moves before they get there. And the president really railed back today against something that really was very, very angering to some of us over the weekend. This idea that he's made too many concessions already. Like what? What concessions has the president made? He's trying to have a conversation and trying to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. And last week with Mr. Abe, even today with Mr. Macron from France. I mean, he's bringing global leaders in to pressure those who are nuclear capable. Look at Mr. Macron today, President Macron today, saying that he thinks we, quote, need a new deal in Iran. Right. And it has to meet five criteria, but it's President Trump that's been the strongest on that, and he's bringing along major players and influencers like France.
Kellyanne Conway, we appreciate you coming by on State Dinner Night. Thank you. Coming up, America's election headquarters, we're talking candidate strategy, how a U.S. Senate seat in West Virginia could possibly be won by a Republican. We have a new poll out in that race. We also have a special election happening today. We have it all covered next. November elections, obviously still more than 6 months away, but strategies for winning are already taking shape for Democrats. One of those tactics includes calling for the impeachment of President Trump. But a senior political correspondent, Mike Emanuel, reports tonight Democrats overall are being warned against doing that by a powerful voice in their own party.
Some Democrats totally opposed to President Trump, like using the I word, impeachment. But there are those in their ranks urging caution.
I lived through the Clinton White House. This is a serious legal and constitutional, not a political issue. And my view is there's nothing there to date that we know.
Yet some liberals are using it to fire up their base, with billionaire activist Tom Steyer pledging $40 million toward impeachment.
He can go into a rage and enter the nuclear launch codes. How bad does it have to get before Congress does something?
And even though she welcomes Steyer's financial support, House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi is careful with her language.
Whether or not the president should be impeached is a matter that is being dealt with in the Justice Department. I don't know that they're talking about impeachment, but whether they have the facts and the law to make a determination of how they go forward. We don't have that information.
Liberal columnist Charles Blow of the New York Times notes America abhors impeachment and warns it is quite possible that trying to impeach and remove Trump could have the opposite effect than the one desired. It could boost rather than diminish his popularity, and an acquittal by the Senate would leave an even more popular president in office. The president has used the threat from California Congresswoman Maxine Waters to fire up his supporters.
We will impeach him. We will impeach the president. But he hasn't done anything wrong. It doesn't matter. We will impeach him. She's a low IQ individual. You can't help it. She really is.
And Texas Senator Ted Cruz ran a doomsday video warning of possible impeachment at his Senate re-election launch earlier this month.
Some of the president's allies are hoping this impeachment talk could unify Republicans, even those who are not big fans of him. Bret?
Mike Emanuel live on the Hill. Mike, thanks. 3 candidates make up the top tier in the Republican primary for West Virginia's Senate seat currently held by Democrat Joe Manchin. New Fox News polls out tonight show Congressman Evan Jenkins taking the top spot with 25% among GOP voters, while the state's Attorney General Patrick Morrisey received 21%. Businessman Don Blankenship rounds out the top 3 with 16%. That means those 3 candidates will join Martha McCallum and me for a debate in West Virginia about this Senate seat. We will bring it to you live from Morgantown May 1st at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This kicks off our America Election Headquarters series of primary and general election debates around the country. For more on the state of that race and the GOP candidates vying for Manchin's Senate seat, we turn to correspondent Peter Ducey, who reports tonight from Charleston.
3 Republicans sit atop the Fox News poll of likely Senate primary voters in the Mountain State, but their support is hardly set in stone. 41% say their pick might switch, so secretive super PACs are spending big to try to sway them. A Democratic-aligned group, Duty and Country, already spent almost $700,000 against Congressman Evan Jenkins.
Evan Jenkins can't be trusted.
Jenkins reasons that Democrats must be worried about him.
It's when the Democrats are trying to beat you in a primary that ought to tell you something.
$40,000 of Democratic PAC money is directed at the Republican Attorney General, Patrick Morrisey.
After all, he's really a millionaire New Yorker and former lobbyist.
Morrisey, too, wears the attack as a badge of honor.
I think people know that I'm best positioned to take out Joe Manchin, and I know they've been hitting a couple different people, but the reality is I have the best matchup because I'm the clear conservative in this race.
But Democrats aren't spending any money against Republican Don Blankenship. Attack ads against him are coming from Republicans and the GOP establishment-linked Mountain Families PAC.
Who will clean up Washington? Not convicted criminal Don Blankenship.
Blankenship, the former coal baron, is a polarizing figure because he was CEO of Massey Energy when tragedy struck at its Upper Big Branch mine, killing 29 miners. He later served a year in jail on a misdemeanor conviction for conspiracy to skirt mine safety laws and has a guess as to why Republicans in D.C. might be trying to stop him from becoming Republican nominee.
Well, I guess most people assume it's because they think they can beat me, but they've thought that when they put me on trial. They've thought it for, I guess, 33 years. They haven't beat me yet.
Allies of the Republican establishment also poured money into Alabama's Republican primary late last year to try to stop Judge Roy Moore from getting the nomination, but Don Blankenship insists he's no Roy Moore.
My accuser was Obama and Hillary. His accuser was women and girls, as I understand. There's quite a bit of difference.
Republicans in D.C. are trying to pay for a primary result that helps them avoid headaches in the November midterm so they can capitalize on a constituency here in coal country that the Fox News poll of likely Republican primary voters finds has Joe Manchin, the Democratic incumbent senator, with an approval rating of 35%, President Trump with an approval rating 87%. Bret?
Interesting numbers. Peter Ducey live in Charleston, West Virginia. Peter, thank you again. That debate May 1st in that Senate race in the primary. At this hour, voters are still casting ballots in Arizona's special election to fill the vacancy left by Republican Congressman Trent Franks, who resigned in December. As correspondent Alicia Cunha reports, the Democratic candidate hopes to pull off an upset victory in what's been a reliably red district.
The conventional wisdom in the race to fill former Arizona Congressman Trent Frank's seat is Republican Debbie Lesko is a shoo-in.
Well, it's good that she has a Lesko sign in her yard. That's nice.
But with the GOP's emphasis on retail politics and pouring big money into the deeply red district, the Republicans are signaling this is a fight they could lose.
This really is a race that should have never been a race.
Arizona political consultant Stan Barnes says Congressional District 8 is a Republican stronghold, largely made up of older white Trump supporters supporting active voters.
I will be beholden to no one but the CD8 voters.
Dr. Haral Tiperneni, the Democratic challenger, has dented Republican armor with fundraising prowess, attack ads, and headliners like former Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Still, Lesko is expected to pull through.
There's kind of an over-under in Arizona about this race. If Debbie Lesko wins by less than 10 points, you'll be able to feel the chill in the air wherever Republican candidates gather.
Lesko understands the national implications of this race.
Certainly it would be great if I could win by a good margin, because then it could really burst a bubble in the Democrats' push. They really just are on a momentum, and we want to stop them.
But Tiperneni isn't letting the district's makeup stop her.
Every race should be contested. Every race is worth investing in, and everyone should earn their spot in D.C.
Former Governor Jan Brewer, a Lesko supporter who lives in the district, thinks all the Democrats spending is wishful thinking, but knows what a slim victory would mean.
I think it would be a wake-up call. No one is going to take any election for granted, obviously. You have to work, and you have to work hard.
Because this is a special election to fill out the remainder of Frank's term, regardless of the outcome, these two will meet up again in November. Bret.
Alicia Cunha live in Phoenix. Alicia, thank you. Next up, the man suspected of killing 10 people in Toronto Monday appears in court today. What was behind this effort? Why someone would drive a vehicle into innocent bystanders, ending 10 lives and wounding many more people. is the question Toronto police are trying to answer tonight as the 25-year-old suspect is charged in court today with multiple counts of murder. Senior correspondent Rick Leventhal with the latest on this investigation from Canada.
Did your son mention you ill?
A wild scene outside a Toronto courthouse this morning with the father of the van attack suspect refusing to answer questions. Inside, authorities charged 25-year-old Alec Manassian with 10 counts of first-degree murder and 13 counts of attempted murder. Wearing a white zippered jumpsuit and handcuffs, he showed no emotion and only said his name, nothing else. Officers with the Toronto Police Public Safety Unit conducted an evidence search the morning after Monday's vehicle assault, combing the entire mile-long scene for any debris or personal effects left behind after a lone driver in a white Ryder rental van hit pedestrian after pedestrian, speeding down sidewalks block after block at up to 45 miles per hour, leaving 10 dead and 15 badly hurt.
We cannot, as Canadians, choose to live in fear every single day as we go about our daily business. We need to focus on doing what we can and we must to keep Canadians safe.
Cell phone video shows the suspect, identified as Manassian, begging officers to shoot him in the head after he was cornered. He eventually got on the ground and was arrested. And while authorities haven't revealed a motive for the attack, a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation tells Fox News Manassian's social media accounts had posts paying tribute to mass killer Elliot Rodger, who stabbed, shot, or ran over 20 people near the University of California, Santa Barbara in 2014, killing 6 and injuring 14 others before killing himself as cops moved in. Rodger left behind a manifesto saying he wanted to punish women for rejecting him and men for being sexually active. Manassian apparently had similar issues with involuntary celibacy, according to his posts. At a news conference this afternoon, authorities confirmed the suspect posted on Facebook just before the attack and say most of the victims were women. They won't talk about how many people are still hospitalized or their conditions, and say it could be several days before all of those killed are positively identified. Bret?
Rick Leventhal live in Toronto. Rick, thank you. Up next, the battle over a caravan of migrants at the southern border. Former President George H.W. Bush remains hospitalized in Houston tonight as he recovers from an infection that spread to his blood. The president was hospitalized just hours after burying former First Lady Barbara Bush, his wife, of course, of 73 years. This morning, President Trump sent his prayers to the Bush family, hoping for a speedy recovery for the former president. A Bush family spokesman is optimistic, however, saying, quote, "The 41st president wants to go to Maine this summer. He's the most goal-oriented person on the planet, and I would not bet against him." We send our prayers as well. The Trump administration remains committed in its attempt to bar migrants from Central America from entering the U.S. as some of the so-called migrant caravans reach our southern border. Tonight, national correspondent William Lajeunesse tracks the path of these migrants and whether the Trump administration's push for stricter border enforcement is working.
Stowing away on trains, some in the caravan of 500 Central Americans arrived at the U.S. border Monday seeking asylum.
We are heading north seeking a better life. As you know, in Honduras, we just can't live there anymore because of the gangs.
Most want to turn themselves in, though President Trump tweeted Monday, "I have instructed the Secretary of Homeland Security not to let these large caravans of people into our country. It is a disgrace. We are the only country in the world so naive." Wow. Claiming asylum carries legal protections and a right to due process.
They deserve to have the right to asylum, and we as a country should be meeting them with open arms.
A caravan organizer says the immigrants are victims.
There are people who maybe witnessed violent crime committed by gangs or another criminal organization who are then targeted because they're witnesses. And there were people on this caravan in particular who were involved in protests against the current government of Honduras.
We will not be discouraged or dissuaded from our need to secure the border, and we will take every step possible to secure our nation.
Homeland Security claims those entering illegally will be prosecuted or detained while their claim is adjudicated, though court rulings could make that difficult.
The administration is dealing with this much differently than the Obama administration did. And first, they're sending the signal that you're just not going to be able to get away with showing up and making an asylum claim and being allowed into the country for an indefinite period.
The Justice Department is sending more prosecutors and immigration judges to the border for what could be a long legal fight, not just for these Central Americans, but hundreds of others arriving daily at the U.S.-Mexican border. Bret?
We'll follow it. William, thank you. Up next, our panel on the big issues coming up over the president's pick for VA secretary, plus reaction to the president's press conference with the French president. And as we head to break, some of the arrivals at tonight's state dinner. There you see Henry Kissinger, 21st Century Fox chairman Rupert Murdoch, Vice President Pence, many more. It's a big night here. They will be dining on goat cheese gâteau, rack of spring lamb, and nectarine tart, among other delicacies.
I believe that the discussions we've had together make it possible to open the way, to pave the way for a new agreement, an agreement on which we will work. And beyond our European partners, we would like to involve the regional powers.
It is essential that the responsible nations of the Middle East step up their own contributions to prevent Iran from profiting off the success of our anti-ISIS effort. They have to step up tremendously, not a little bit, but tremendously, their financial effort.
President Trump and the French president today taking questions, talking a lot about the Iran deal. The president calling it a decaying foundation. The deal has a decaying foundation, and he wants a new deal. And you heard that from the French president as well. They talked about Syria, and obviously out of that press conference, a lot of news about the VA secretary nomination. We'll talk about it all with the panel. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics co-founder and publisher. Mara Lice, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. Mara, let's start with the international stuff. Some news on the Iran situation. I mean, clearly they have a personal rapport, these two presidents.
Absolutely.
I mean, there were air kisses, there were
flecking dandruff off
all
shoulders,
kinds of things.
yes.
But they also seem to have or see eye to eye, even though there are differences, on moving forward with something new.
Something new. Macron worked really, really hard to sell Trump on this idea of using the Iran deal as a foundation and building on it, and he came up with 3 pillars that would address Trump's concerns. So in addition to stopping Iran from developing nuclear weapons in 10 years, which the current agreement does, you'd add on something that would prevent them from doing it permanently. You add something on ballistic missiles. You add something on stopping them from interfering in Yemen and Syria and Iraq. He wants to use the existing agreement as the foundation. Trump was talking about something a little different. He was talking about starting a whole new foundation. So I don't know exactly how it works if on May 12th, as I think Trump hinted today, he wants to scrap the deal.
Yeah, Molly.
Well, it does seem, I mean, in addition to those problems that Trump has, he also doesn't like the deal because of its lack of ability to inspect their program and its inability to deal with ballistic missiles. And there are his idea that this is just a bad deal at the outset that really greenlit their nuclear program and doesn't match our interests. It makes sense that Europe likes this program. It makes sense that they see some good in being able to trade with Iran and in the stability that the deal gave Iran and Europe. But it doesn't match being in the U.S. interest. And that was one of the things that came through in this press conference, this discussion about making sure that things are in the national interest. And I was really struck by when President Trump said, you know, we've spent $17 trillion or $7 trillion in the Middle East, and we've spent 17 years there. We don't have a lot to show for it. He's asking for regional allies to step up and start doing what's in their interest rather than us bankrolling everything with money and with our soldiers.
At the same time, that also factors in with Syria. Here's an exchange with the two leaders on Syria.
As far as Syria is concerned, I would love to get out. With that being said, Emmanuel and myself have discussed the fact that we don't want to give Iran open season to the Mediterranean, but we're going to be coming home relatively soon.
When you are probably much more at the end of a war, you have to adapt to the enemy and the reality on the ground. But for sure, what we want to do now is to finish this war with our troops, and we want to fix on the long run the situation.
So, Tom, thoughts on that? I mean, there are obviously differences, but it seems like they've come together on that too.
Correct. And look, the Syria strike, Trump was talking about how well they worked together, what a success it was. And clearly he wants to be out of Syria. He wanted to be out. He didn't want to even go back in there in the slightest. So Trump will be putting pressure, I think, as Molly said, on France and on other allies in the region to step up and make sure that there's a solution in Syria that will allow us to withdraw, because he's wanted that for a long, long time. It was one of his original campaign promises. He does not want to be stuck in the Middle East.
Big focus today ended up being the Veterans Affairs Secretary nomination of Ronny Jackson. Take a listen.
I'm looking forward to rescheduling the hearing and answering everyone's questions.
I haven't heard of the particular allegations, but I will tell you he's one of the finest people that I have met. Now, I know there's an experience problem because lack of experience. Well, I would definitely stand behind him. He's a fine man. I'll always stand behind him. I'd let it be his choice.
And as of tonight, Molly, the White House is saying they are standing behind him, and he is going to continue forward with this nomination.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing the president talk that way, because it seemed like he was giving him a way out. If he doesn't want to put up with this, you can get out. Yet, Dr. Jackson says he's absolutely intent on going through the hearings, which suggests also that we might need to learn a little bit more about what these allegations are. Are they just a disgruntled former colleague talking about something, or is there something legitimate there? But the fact that so many administrations have worked with this doctor and have praised him, and so many people sing his praises regardless of political affiliation, says something. The issue is, again, I think the issue that people should focus on is whether being a good doctor and being beloved by all these administrations means you can handle the very serious problems at the VA.
I mean, that's the real question for veterans groups, in that it's one of the largest, I think, it's second largest agency, 370,000 workers.
It's one of the biggest health systems in America.
And that's really the question. These, statements from President Obama and President Bush obviously tell to the character of Dr. Jackson and his ability.
The patients that he's treated in the White House, all the White House staffs and all these different presidents, they love him. The complaints apparently that have gone to the committee are about his staff and problems there. And
there was an internal dispute against an opponent of his.
And we don't know what they are. We don't know if they're true. We don't know if the White House was aware of them.
That hasn't prevented Capitol Hill from just spewing out all kinds of stuff.
That's right. But the interesting thing to me today, and I was in the press conference, is Donald Trump did repeat many, many times, if I were him, I wouldn't go through with this. That really struck me. He talked about giving him an off-ramp. I thought he was almost opening the door for him.
Until he got to the end of that sentence, I thought this was literally the end.
He kept on repeating, I said to him, you don't need this. If I were him, I personally wouldn't do it.
Tom.
Historically, delays are death for nominations. It gives the hyenas a chance to sort of circle around and pick away. But the fact that Dr. Jackson has said, I'm moving forward, I'm eager to go up there and answer questions, would he do that if it was going to be, he was going to embarrass himself and more things were going to come out? I suspect that we're going to find out that some of these allegations are probably unsubstantiated, or he's going to deny them, and it's going to be a he said, whoever said.
Right. I mean, it could be an ugly ride here after the Pompeo situation, where you had Democrats who voted for him as CIA director and voted against him for Secretary of State nominee. Is there a sense, do you think, that Democrats simply just want a scalp of some kind?
Right, and that this is not something that just Democrats do. Republicans also
of course, both parties.
Cabinet nominees. But there is this sense that there is just a failure to get one guy, so now we're going to go for the next guy, and then we're going to go for the next guy. And it does mean that the public loses interest sometimes, or lacks confidence that these complaints are necessarily as legitimate as people claim.
And lacks context. We'll try to provide that. Panel, thank you. A little breaking news today. One panel. When we come back, highlights from the president's first official state visit.